The alarm screamed through my skull. Before I even opened my eyes, red lights flashed across the metal walls of my bunk. My hand was already on my rifle. Before my brain finished waking up, 20 years of training does that to you. You move first, then you think. I rolled out of the bunk and slammed my palm against the wall panel. A voice crackled through the speakers, fast and sharp. All human personnel report to deck 7. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. My name is Marcus Hale. I'm a sergeant in what the Galactic Coalition calls their Tier 3 Human Combat Division. That's their polite way of saying we are the last option on a very long list. For 40 years since humans joined the Coalition, we have been told we are too emotional, too fragile, too wild for real war. The big warrior species, the Vorthans, handle all the fighting. We handle supply lines and cargo runs. That was about to change. I pulled on my boots and sprinted down the narrow hallway of the Coalition ship. Resolute dawn. Other humans were already running with me. Private Helen Brooks, barely 20 years old, her eyes wide but her jaw set hard. Corporal Daniel West, the oldest of us at 50, a quiet man who never spoke unless he had something worth saying. Private Owen Grant, skinny and fast, who could fix any weapon in under 5 minutes. Private Leela Moore, the best shot I had ever trained with. 15 of us in total. That was our whole unit. We reached Deck 7 and the blast doors hissed open. The briefing room was full of tall aliens in silver uniforms. I had seen many alien species in my years with the Coalition, but never had I seen so many of them look so afraid. At the front of the room stood a Vorthan commander. He was 8 ft tall, covered thick gray plates with 4 arms that ended in claws the size of kitchen knives. The Vorthans are the greatest warriors in the known galaxy. They have never lost a war. They fight with honor and rules in beautiful formations that they have perfected over 10,000 years. This Vorthan commander looked like he was about to be sick, if Vorthans could even do that. Human soldiers, he said, his deep voice shaking in a way I had never heard before. The Krellborn have broken through the outer rim defense. The room went silent. I felt my stomach drop. The Krellborn. Everyone in the galaxy knew that name, even though no one had ever seen one up close and lived. They were not from our galaxy. They came from somewhere far beyond the edge of known space. They were insects, but not the small kind. Each one was the size of a horse with 6 legs and jaws that could bite through metal. They did not talk. They did not negotiate. They ate everything they found, and then they moved on to find more. 3 Vorthan fleets have been lost in 7 days, the commander continued. We cannot stop them. The Council has decided to deploy the human division to the mining colony on Karsh 9. Krellborn have landed there. Your mission is to hold the colony until reinforcements arrive. I looked at the other humans in the room. They looked at me. I was the senior sergeant. This was my call, even though the Vorthan thought he was in charge. How many Krellborn on the ground? I asked. The commander hesitated. Our scans show approximately 12,000. And how many of us are being sent? 150 human soldiers. We could not spare more. 12,000 against 150. The math was not good. It was not good at all. A Vorthan fleet of 10,000 trained warriors had been wiped out trying to hold a similar colony just 3 days ago. And now they were sending 150 of us with our simple rifles and our thin armor to do what those giant warriors could not. I should have been afraid. I was afraid. Somewhere deep inside, but I was also something else, something I could feel, building in my chest, warm and strange. I was angry. The coalition had spent 40 years telling us we were not good enough. They had laughed at our history. They had called our species violent and backward, and now when their own greatest warriors had failed, they were sending us to die, so they would not have to. I looked at Helen Brooks. She was barely older than my own daughter had been when I lost her 10 years ago in the war on Mars. Helen would never come home if I did not figure out how to keep her alive. Then I looked at the Vorthan commander, and I smiled. "We accept the mission," I said. The commander blinked his 4 eyes in surprise. "You have not even heard the full briefing. There is no expectation of survival. This is a delay operation. Only you are meant to slow them down." "I heard you the first time," I said. "We accept. When do we drop?" 6 hours. Then get out of my way. My soldiers need to prepare." I walked past him and my unit followed me. We moved through the halls of the great coalition ship, past aliens who stared at us like we were ghosts. Already word was spreading fast. The humans had accepted the mission. The humans were going to die on Karsh 9. Let them talk, I thought. In the equipment bay, I gathered my 15 soldiers around a metal table. I pulled out a map of Karsh 9 and spread it flat. "Listen to me carefully," I said. "Vorthans tried to fight the Krellborn. With rules, they tried to fight them. With honor, they tried to line up in nice formations and meet them in the open. That is why the Vorthans are dead. And we are the ones standing here." I tapped the map with my finger. "We are not going to fight like that. We are going to fight like humans. Do you understand what I am saying?" Corporal Daniel West nodded slowly. He was old enough to remember the wars back on Earth. He knew what I meant. "Private Grant," I said, "I want you to pull every piece of mining equipment from the cargo hold, explosive drills, heavy cutters, anything that can be turned into something useful. You have 5 hours. "Yes, Sergeant." "Private Moore, you are going to set up firing positions on every tall building in that colony. I want you to know every window, every rooftop, every blind spot. When the Krellborn come, they will not see where the shots are coming from." "Yes, Sergeant." "Private Brooks, I need you to study the Krellborn, everything we have, every picture, every scan, every report. I want to know what they eat, what they fear, how they sleep, how they communicate. By the time we land, you will be the galaxy's expert on them." Helen nodded, her eyes burning with focus. "The rest of you, I want you thinking. The Krellborn expect us to fight them the way the Vorthans did. They are going to be wrong. They are going to be very, very wrong." A coalition observer had been watching us from the door. She was an Avani, a tall, thin alien with pale blue skin and large black eyes. Her name was Ilthari, and she had been assigned to watch human soldiers in combat and report back to the council. Her people were telepaths. They could read minds. She walked into the room slowly. She looked pale even for her species. "Sergeant Hale," she said quietly, "may I speak with you?" I stepped aside with her. "What is it?" I have been in the minds of your soldiers. I cannot help it. My gift is always active. I wanted you to know that. I have never felt anything like this before, not in any species in the coalition. Felt what? She looked up at me with her huge dark eyes. Your people do not feel fear the way we do. You feel it, but underneath it there is something else, something harder, something that does not stop. I cannot even find the right word for it in my language. I thought about that for a moment, then I said the only word that fit. Stubborn, I told her. We call it stubborn. She tilted her head, trying to understand. 6 hours later, we dropped through the atmosphere of Karsh 9 in 15 landing pods, burning through the sky like falling stars. Below us, the mining colony was already on fire. I could see the Krellborn swarming across the ground, thousands of dark shapes moving over the rocks and buildings. My pod hit the ground hard. I kicked opened the door and rolled out into the red dirt. The air was hot and thick with smoke. I could hear the sounds of the enemy screaming and clicking somewhere in the distance. Helen Brooks landed beside me. She looked up at the alien sky, then at me. Sergeant, she said, what do we do now? I loaded my rifle and pulled down the visor of my helmet. Now, Private, I said, we show them what humans are. And I started running toward the fire. The first thing I noticed about the Krellborn up close was the smell. It came on the wind before anything else. Sharp, sour smell like old milk mixed with burning plastic. It hit the back of my throat and made my eyes water. I pulled my face mask tighter and kept moving. Helen was running right behind me. Corporal West was on my left. The rest of the unit was spreading out into the shadows of the burning colony, exactly as I had told them to do on the ship. No formations, no straight lines. We moved like hunters, low and quiet, using every wall and piece of broken machinery for cover. The colony on 9 had been home to about 8,000 alien miners before the Krell bar landed. Most of them were a small, peaceful species called the drome. They looked like soft blue otters that walked on 2 legs. They mined rare metals for the coalition and had never held a weapon in their lives. I tried not to think about what had happened to them. I tried not to look at the things the Krell bar had left in the streets. I could not save the drome. They were already gone, but I could make sure that what happened here did not happen anywhere else. Private Moore's voice came through my helmet radio, calm and clear. Sergeant, I have eyes on the main swarm. From the water tower, there are about 400 Krell bar in the central square. They are gathered around something big. I cannot tell what it is. Keep watching, I said. Do not fire yet. Owen, how are those explosives coming? Almost ready, Sergeant. Private Grant answered. I am using the mining charges from the supply depot. I have rigged them to a remote trigger. When you say the word, I can bring down half the buildings on the north side of the square. Good, hold for my signal. Helen, what do you have for me? Helen was crouched beside me behind an overturned cargo truck. She had been studying Krell bar data for 6 hours straight on the ship, and her brain was full of bar are not individual thinkers. They operate as a group mind, but the group mind is controlled by queens. Every swarm has at least one queen. She is larger than the others, and she cannot move well on her own. She stays in the center of the swarm and gives orders through a kind of Chemical signal. So if we hurt the queen, the swarm gets confused. They start fighting each other. They do not know what to do without her. I smiled under my helmet. This was very good information. More that big thing in the center of the square, can you describe it? It is about the size of a small building, Sergeant. It has many legs. But it is not walking, it is just sitting there. The other Krellbar keep going up to it and touching it with their antennas. That is the queen, Helen whispered. My plan was forming fast in my head. The Vorthan warriors would never have done what I was about to do. It would be against their code of honor. They would have marched into the square with trumpets blowing and given the enemy chance to face them in fair combat. We were not Vorthans. Corporal West, I said, take 5 soldiers to the south side of the square. When I give the signal, make as much noise as you can. Fire your rifles. Shout, make the Krellbar think the main attack is coming from the south. Yes, Sergeant. Owen, get your charges ready on the north buildings. When the Krellbar turn toward the south to fight West and his team, you bring those buildings down on top of them. Yes, Sergeant. More the moment the dust rises, you take your best shot at the queen. You only get one chance. She is protected by soldier Krellbar, but when the dust is thick, they will not see you firing from the tower. I will not miss, Sergeant. Helen, you are with me. We are going to cut through the side alley and reach the queen while everyone else is confused. If Moore's shot does not finish her, we are going to make sure the job gets done. Helen looked at me. I could see the fear in her eyes, but I could also see that other thing, the thing Ilthari had tried to name on the ship, that stubborn thing, that human thing. Let's go, she said. I gave the signal. Corporal West opened fire from the south. His team made enough noise for 100 soldiers. The Krellbar swarm hissed and clicked and surged toward the sound, exactly like I had hoped they would. Then Private Grant's charges went off. The north side of the square erupted in a storm of dust and broken stone. 3 tall buildings collapsed on top of the Krellbar fighters who were rushing to the south. The swarm went wild, without their queen giving clear orders. They did not know whether to retreat, attack, or freeze. I heard a single sharp crack from the water tower. Leela Moore had taken her shot. Helen and I were already running through the side alley. We burst into the main square just as the dust was thickest. I could barely see 5 FT in front of me. I could hear the queen making a terrible sound, somewhere between a scream and a horn. Moore's shot had wounded her but not finished her. The queen was massive up close. Her body was the size of a small truck, and her long antennas were thrashing in pain. 6 or 7 soldier Krellbar were gathered around her trying to protect her. They saw me coming through the dust and turned to face me. Helen fired her rifle. 2 of them fell. I fired mine and took down another. Remaining Krellbar rushed at us, but they were confused without the queen's signals. They tripped over each other. They hesitated. They were not used to fighting without clear orders. I reached the queen. I climbed up onto her back. Helen was right behind me, covering me with her rifle. I pulled the explosive charge from my belt, the one Owen had prepared for me, and I placed it right behind the queen's head. Then I jumped down and ran. Helen and I sprinted back into the alley. 5 seconds later, the charge went off. The queen did not make any more sounds. The moment she was gone, something incredible happened. The entire swarm of Krellbar across the colony seemed to lose their minds. They started running in circles. Some of them attacked each other. Some of them just stopped moving and stood in place like they had forgotten what they were doing. Now I said into my radio, all units hit them now. They are blind. For the next 3 hours, my 15 soldiers cut through a force that outnumbered us by nearly 1,000 to 1. We used every trick I knew. We set fires. We collapsed tunnels. We used the colony's own machinery against the enemy. More. Picked off any Krellbar that looked like it might be organizing a counterattack. Helen led a team through the sewers and came up behind a group of 200 that thought they were safe. Owen turned the colony's mining drills into weapons. Corporal West held the south side with his team and did not lose a single soldier. By the time the sun began to set on Karsh 9, the colony was quiet. We did not lose anyone, not one human. All 15 of us were still standing. I walked through the empty streets with Helen beside me. The smoke was clearing. The smell was starting to fade. Up in the sky, I could see the lights of the Vorthen fleet arriving for what they thought would be a rescue mission. They were going to find no one to rescue. Just a lot of questions. My radio crackled. It was Ilthari, calling from the coalition ship in orbit. Sergeant Hale, she said. Her voice was strange. She sounded like she was in shock. The sensors are showing no active Krellbar signals on the entire surface. How is this possible? The projection said the colony should be held for 6 months. It has been less than 6 hours. I looked around at the quiet streets, at Helen, who was leaning against a wall, finally letting herself breathe, at the great purple sky of an alien world where my people had just done what no other species in the galaxy could do. Tell the council something for me. Ilthari, I said. What should I tell them? I took a deep breath of the cooling air. Tell them that humans are not a last resort anymore. On the coalition ship, 3 days after Karsh 9, I could not sleep. I sat alone in the observation room, watching the stars go by. My whole body ached. Kind of deep ache you get after too many hours of running and fighting, but it was not the pain that kept me awake. It was the silence. Before the battle, the alien crew of the Resolute Dawn used to laugh at us. They made jokes in their own languages when we walked past. They rolled their eyes when human officers spoke in meetings. Now when I walked through the halls, they stepped aside. They lowered their voices. Some of them would not even look at me. I had wanted respect for 40 years. Now that I had it, I realized it was not respect, it was fear. The door slid open behind me. I did not need to turn around to know who it was. Ilthari was the only one on the ship who still walked right up to me without hesitation. Her species, the Avani, felt things deeper than most. Maybe that made her braver, or maybe it just made her too curious to stay away. You should be sleeping, Sergeant Hale, she said softly. So should you. She sat down beside me, her long, thin fingers folded neatly in her lap. For a moment we just watched the stars together. The council has ordered a new mission, she finally said. They want to speak with you before they announce it. I turned to look at her. Another colony. Worse, much worse. She was quiet for a long moment, gathering her thoughts. A full Krellbar hive has been detected On the moon of Drethvar, it is not a small scouting force like the one you fought on Karsh 9. This is a true hive. The sensors estimate 200,000 Krellbar are on the surface. They are building something there, a structure. Our analysts believe a gateway, a door that will let more Krellbar come through from their home galaxy. 200,000. I let the number sit in my head for a while. How many soldiers is the council sending? I asked. Ilthari would not meet my eyes. How many, Ilthari? 47, she whispered. They are sending only your human division, no Vorthans, no support fleet. The council has decided that the risk of losing another large force is too great. They want the humans to go in alone and see if you can stop it. I laughed. I could not help it. It came out dry and tired. They want us to die quietly, I said, so they do not have to explain to their people why they lost more warriors. They believe you cannot win. They have already written the official notice of loss. They plan to release it the day after you land. That was the part that should have made me angry, but I was too tired to be angry. I was something else instead. I was focused. When do we leave? In 12 hours, Sergeant. There is something else you should know. I have requested permission to come with you. I looked at her sharply. Absolutely not. It is already approved. The council agreed because they believe no one will return. They did not see any reason to refuse me. Ilthari, you are not a soldier. You are a diplomat. You will not survive one day down there. Her dark eyes met mine, and for the first time I saw something in them that I had never expected to see in an Avani. A kind of quiet steel. I have been inside the minds of your people, Sergeant. I have felt what your species feels when there is no hope left. I need to see it with my own eyes. I need to understand what you are. My people have lived in peace for 10,000 years, and in 10,000 years we have never produced anything like you. I cannot write my report from a safe ship in orbit, not this time. I wanted to argue with her. I wanted to tell her she was being foolish, but I could see it would not matter. She had decided. Then stay close to me, I said, and do exactly what I tell you. She nodded. 12 hours later, we dropped onto Drethvar. The moon was cold and gray. A thin layer of ice covered everything. The sky was dark purple with the huge red planet of Drethvar filling half of it. Above us, it would have been beautiful if the ground below had not been crawling with enemies. We landed in a deep crater on the north side of the moon, about 30 miles from the main Krellbar hive. The plan was simple, not easy, but simple. We could not fight 200,000 enemies in the open. We could not call for help, so we were going to become ghosts. I gathered my 47 soldiers in the crater. The cold air turned our breath into white clouds. Ilthari stood at the back, wrapped in a thermal cloak, trying not to shiver. Listen carefully, I said. We are not here to hold this moon. We are here to break their gateway, nothing else matters. We hide by day, we move by night. We do not engage the main swarm unless we have no other choice. Every fight we pick is a fight we choose on our terms at the right time. Private Grant had brought a full pack of explosives. Corporal West had a detailed map of the moon's ice caves that I had pulled from old Coalition mining records. Helen had studied everything we could find on Krellbar hive structures and she had identified what she thought was the weakest point of the gateway. Moore had a long rifle that could hit a target from 2 miles away. Ilthari watched us work. I could see her writing notes in a small device. "You are all so calm," she said quietly. "How are you so calm?" Helen Brooks looked at her and gave a tired smile. "We are not calm, Miss Ilthari. We are just used to being scared. After a while, fear becomes a normal part of the day. You snorts learn to work around it the same way you work around a bad nay." Ilthari blinked. She wrote that down. Her notes. For the next 6 days, we played the longest hunting game of my life. We moved through the ice caves at night, cutting new paths with our lasers, avoiding the main Krellbar patrols. We ate our cold rations in the dark. We slept in shifts of 90 minutes at a time. When we spotted small groups of Krellbar scouts, we let them pass if we could and removed them quietly if we could not. We left no tracks. We made no sounds. For 6 days, 200,000 enemies had no idea that 47 humans were walking right under their feet. On the 3rd day, we lost our first soldier. His name was Private Oliver Grant. He, Snorts, was the younger brother of Owen Grant, our explosives expert. Oliver had been in the unit for only 2 years. He was quiet and kind, and he loved drawing pictures of the planets we visited. Krellbar scout surprised him at the mouth of a cave. He fought back and took the scout down, but he was hurt badly. He did not survive the night. We carried him with us. We did not leave him behind. Owen did not speak for a full day after we lost his brother. He just worked. He built more explosives. He checked every charge twice. When he finally spoke, it was to me in the cold dark of a cave, while everyone else was sleeping. "Sergeant," he said, "when we reach the gateway, I want to be the one who sets the main charge." I looked at him for a long time. I understood what he was really saying. He was telling me that if something went wrong, if one of us had to stay behind and make sure the charge went off, he wanted it to be him. "We will see," I said, "one step at a time." Ilthari was becoming a different person. On that moon, when we had started, she flinched at every sound. She cried the first time she saw one of our soldiers get hurt, but by the 5th day she was walking without complaint. She was carrying her own pack. She was helping Helen clean weapons. One night she sat beside me while I was eating a piece of cold protein. The stars above us were very bright. "I understand now," she said. "Understand what?" "Why your species terrifies the Council. At first, I thought it was because you are good at fighting, but that is not the real reason. There are many species in the galaxy who are strong. The Vorthans are stronger than you. Kelto are faster. The Dran have harder shells." She paused, searching for the right words. "The reason your species frightens us is because you do not stop. You do not break. When the Vorthans lost their fleets, they asked the Council for permission to retreat. They did what was logical. They accepted the loss, but your people never even considered retreating. It did not enter your minds. Not once, not even when the numbers were impossible." I chewed my cold food and thought about that. My species had a long history, Ilthari. A long, hard history. We spent most of our time on Earth trying to survive. Things that wanted to eat us, or things that wanted to take our land, or even just the weather. When you live like that for 100,000 years, stopping is not an option. That your brain can even think about. Your brain deletes that option before you are old enough to talk. She nodded slowly. She was writing everything down. On the 6th day, I continued, we will reach the gateway, and we are going to break it, not because we are sure we will win. We are not sure of anything. We are going to break it because the alternative is to let the crowbar through, and that is a worse idea than dying. That is the whole secret of my people right there. We compare the options and we pick the one that is slightly less terrible, and then we do it. She was quiet for a long time. I'm afraid to die on this moon, she finally whispered. I know, I said. We are too. Welcome to being human. You will get used to it. On the 6th night we reached the gateway. It was a huge structure, a tower of black material that rose up out of the ice, twisting like a horn. Around it, the main body of the Krellbar hive was gathered. We could see the queen at the base of the tower, larger than the one on Karsh 9, surrounded by tens of thousands of soldier Krellbar. The gateway was not finished yet, but Helen said it was only days away from being active. We were not going to get past the swarm. Not 47 against so many. That was never the plan. The plan was to go under them. Corporal West had found a line of ice caves that ran right beneath the gateway's foundation. We had been crawling through them for the last 2 days, now deep below the tower in a cave that was only about 6 ft high. Owen Grant placed the main charge against the base of the structure. I looked at my soldiers in the dim light of our helmet lamps, 46 of us now, plus Ilthari, Helen Brooks, who had saved my life twice since Karsh 9, Corporal West, who had not slept more than 3 hours a night in a week, Leela Moore, whose eyes were red from watching through her scope for so many hours, Owen Grant, who was about to blow up the thing that had taken his brother's life. On my signal, I said into my radio, all teams pull back to the second cave. Owen, you set the timer for 5 minutes. And you come with us, do you understand? Me, you come with us. That is an order, not a request. He looked at me. I could see he had been planning to stay behind with the charge. I could see him thinking about whether to argue. Owen, Helen said gently, your brother would want you to come home. He nodded. He set the timer for 5 minutes. Then we ran. I have never run so hard in my life. 47 soldiers and 1 alien diplomat, sprinting through a narrow ice cave in the dark, knowing we had 5 minutes before the whole moon might come down on top of us. My lungs burned, my legs burned, but I did not slow down, and no one else did either. At the 4-minute mark, we reached the second cave, which was deep enough and strong enough to hold. At the 5-minute mark, the whole moon shook. The cave roared. Dust and ice fell from the ceiling. I heard a sound like a mountain breaking in half. I pulled Helen and Ilthari close against the wall. For snorts a long time we could not see anything or hear anything except the roar. Then slowly it stopped. We crawled out of the cave into a different world. The gateway was gone. Where the tower had stood, there was now only a huge crater filled with broken black material. The main Krellbar hive had been at the base of the tower. Most of it was gone too. The queen was gone, and without her, the 200,000 Krellbar Across the moon were suddenly confused, leaderless mob. Some were running, some were fighting each other. Most were just standing still, lost. We had done it. Elthari stood beside me in the cold moonlight, looking at the crater. I have to send a report to the council, she said. Her voice was strange, shaking. What are you going to tell them? I asked. She turned to look at me. Her dark eyes were full of something I could not name. I am going to tell them the truth. Sergeant Hale, I am going to tell them that 47 of your soldiers just did something that my entire species, with all our science and all our peace, could never have done. And I am going to tell them that they need to stop being afraid of what you are. And what are we, Elthari? She was quiet for a long time. You are what the galaxy needed, she said at last, whether the galaxy knows it or not. 2 weeks after Drethvar, they called me to the coalition capital. The planet was called Senthil Prime. It was the most beautiful world I had ever seen. Great golden cities rose up into the clouds, built by 200 different species. Over 10,000 years of peace. Flying vehicles moved between the towers. In long curving lines, the air smelled like clean water and something sweet I could not name. This was the heart of the coalition. This was what the council was trying to protect when they sent us out to die. I arrived alone. They had asked only for me. The rest of my unit was resting on the Resolute Dawn. Helen had wanted to come with me, so had Elthari, who had stayed close to me since we returned from the moon, but the orders were clear: 1 human, no escorts. I wore my dress uniform. It felt strange on my body after weeks in combat armor. I had shaved my face for the first time in a month. My left leg still hurt where a piece of ice had caught me during the escape. I walked with a small limp that I could not fully hide. The council chamber was enormous. It was a round room the size of a sports stadium, with seats rising up in curved rings toward a high ceiling made of colored glass. 200 delegates from 200 different species were seated in those rings. Tall ones, short ones, ones with fur and ones with scales, ones who breathed through gills, and ones who communicated through flashing lights on their skin. They had all come to see me, the human, the soldier, the question no one knew how to answer. At the center of the chamber was a single small platform. That was where I was supposed to stand. The platform had been built for someone much larger than me. I had to climb up 3 steps to reach the speaking position, and when I stood there, my head was barely above the edge of the railing. I did not let that bother me. The head of the council was a Thessan. The Thessans are a very old species, small and wise, with gray skin and kind eyes. The head counselor's name was Renval. He was older than most planets. He had been on the council for 600 years. He rose from his seat, and his voice filled the chamber. Sergeant Marcus Hale of the Earth Division, he said, you have been called before this council to answer for the events on Drethvar. That was not the welcome I had been expecting. Answer, I said. Answer for what? A different voice spoke up from a high seat on the left side, a Vorthan voice. Deep and cold, it belonged to Grand Warrior Tarkin, the leader of the Vorthan Protectorate. He had lost 3 fleets in the Krell Bar War. He had not forgiven my species for succeeding where his had failed. The human division destroyed a Krell Bar hive structure without authorization. Tarkin growled. The operation was meant to be a holding action. Instead, you committed acts that the Council never approved. You used methods that are outside of every rule of war we have. I looked up at him, 8 FT of gray armor, and bitter pride staring down at me like I was an insect. You lost 3 fleets trying to fight them by your rules, Warrior Tarkin, I said quietly. We won with 47 soldiers. I am not sure which of us should be answering questions today. A ripple of sound went through the chamber. Whispers, clicks. One species on the upper ring made a sound like soft laughter. Another made a sound like horror. Counselor Renval raised his hand for silence. Sergeant Hale, he said, this is not a trial, but there are serious concerns. The delegates of many species have asked me questions that I cannot answer. They want to know what your species is. They want to know if humans can be trusted in the long peace of our coalition. Several delegations have asked that humanity be restricted from combat roles permanently. Some have asked for more serious actions. What kind of more serious actions? I asked. Renval hesitated. Some have suggested that humanity be placed under observation and limited travel restrictions. A very small group has even asked that humanity be removed from the coalition entirely. I felt something cold move through my chest. 40 years of trying to be accepted, 40 years of our people working in the lowest jobs, taking the worst assignments, smiling through the insults, building friendships with species that barely saw us as equals. And now, when we had saved them, they wanted to throw us out. I took a deep breath. I looked around at the 200 species staring down at me. I thought about Helen Brooks sleeping in her bunk back on the ship. I thought about Oliver Grant, who we had buried on the cold moon of Drethvar. I thought about all the humans before me who had carried their people forward through every hard century of our history on Earth. I was not going to let them send us away. Counselor Renval, I said, may I speak freely to the council? You may. Then please listen carefully, because I am only going to say this once. I turned slowly, looking at all the seats around me. I made sure every delegate could see my face. You think my species is dangerous? I said. You are right, we are, but you do not understand why. I began to walk slowly around the small platform. You think we are dangerous because we know how to fight. That is not the reason. The Vorthans know how to fight better than we do. The Kelto have weapons we could never build. The Dran have ships that could destroy our whole planet in an hour. There are at least 30 species in this chamber right now that could defeat my people in a fair war. And I am not too proud to say it. I stopped and looked up at Tarkin. So we do not fight fair wars. The chamber went quiet again. I continued walking. My species evolved on a world that tried to kill us every single day, not once, not twice, every day, for hundreds of thousands of years. Before we had cities, we were hunted by animals with teeth bigger than our heads. Before we had fire, we froze in the winters and burned in the summers. Before we had medicine, our children died from tiny, invisible things that lived in the water. For most of our history, it was a very good thing if one of our children reached the age of 10. Most of them did not. I paused and let that sit with them for a moment. Our planet threw every kind of pain at us, and we did not die. We kept going. We buried our families and we kept going. We lost our homes and we built new ones. We forgot things and we learned them again. We invented stories to explain why we should keep going, and when those stories stopped working, we invented new ones. That is what we did. For thousands of years, that is how we became what we are. Elthari was watching me from a seat near the back of the chamber. I had not noticed her before. I could see her taking notes. Even now, she had gotten permission to attend as a witness. Our eyes met for a moment, and she gave me a small nod. I kept going. When we finally got smart enough to build spaceships, you might think we had outgrown that hard history. We had not, because the hard history was inside us. By then it was in our bones. It was in the shape of our minds. We do not know how to stop. We do not know how to give up. A human child learns to walk by falling. We fall and we stand up, and we fall and we stand up until we can walk. Nobody ever teaches us to stop falling. We just fall until we learn. That is the whole story of my species. Right there, we fall until we learn. I looked up at the glass ceiling. The colors of the sunset were starting to come through. The Vorthans fight by honor, I said. They lose by honor too. When they cannot win, they retreat with dignity. That is a beautiful way to live, and I respect it, but you cannot ask us to fight that way because we do not know how. When we cannot win, we do not retreat. We fall back and we think harder. When our first plan does not work, we try a second plan and a third and a fourth. When we run out of plans, we make new ones out of whatever we have in our pockets. If we have to fight with rocks, we fight with rocks. If we have to fight in the dark, we fight in the dark. If we have to fight alone, we fight alone. This is not bravery. We are not brave. We are terrified every single time. We are just more stubborn than we are terrified. That is the only difference. I could see some of the delegates leaning forward now. Even Tarkin was silent. You called us here to decide what to do with us. I understand. You are frightened. You spent 10,000 years building a peaceful coalition, and now something new and strange has walked into your garden, and it has teeth, and you do not know whether to feed it or chase it away. I understand that. If I were you, I might be frightened too. I took a deep breath. Let me tell you something important. The Krellbar are not the last enemy this galaxy will ever face. There will be more. Something will always come out of the dark. Something that does not care about your beautiful rules and your long peace. When that thing arrives, you will have a choice. You can call us, or you can face it alone, and if you choose to face it alone, you will lose, not because you are weak. You are not weak, but because you do not know how to do what we do. You do not know how to refuse to die. That is a skill. It takes practice, and my people are the only ones in this galaxy who have practiced it for 300,000 years. I stopped walking. I stood very still at the center of the platform. I spread my hands out. I am not here to beg you. My people do not beg. I'm here to tell you the truth. And then I am going to walk out of this room, and you will decide what you will decide. But understand this. If you send us away, you will be safer for a little while, and then one day something terrible will come, and in that moment you will remember this speech. You will remember that you had a chance to keep us, and you will wish you had. I stepped down from the platform. I walked toward the doors. My footsteps were the only sound in the enormous chamber. 200 species watched me in total silence. Then behind me, Ilthari stood up. "Counselor Renville," she said, "may I speak?" The old Thessan nodded. Ilthari walked down from her seat to the center of the chamber. She was thin and pale, but her back was straight. I stopped at the door and turned to listen. I was sent to observe the human soldiers, she said. I spent 6 weeks with them. I went into combat with them on the moon of Drethvar. I lived through things I did not believe I could live through, and I read their minds. Counselors, my gift as an Avanai allowed me to see inside them in a way that no other observer ever has. She paused. I want to tell you what I found. I did not find monsters. I did not find people who love violence. I found tired, frightened beings who would rather be home with their families than on a cold moon fighting something terrible. Every single one of them was scared. Every single one of them wanted to go home. And every single one of them kept walking forward anyway, because they had decided that the rest of us were worth protecting. She looked around the chamber, her dark eyes fierce. Sergeant Hale is correct. Something worse than the Krellbar will come one day. And on that day, the humans will be the ones who stand between us and the dark. I have been inside their minds. I know this is true. To send them away would be the greatest mistake this council has ever made. I ask you with all of my respect, please do not make it. She stepped back. I stood at the door, not sure what to do. Counselor Renville rose slowly to his feet. The council will now vote, he announced. The voting took 2 hours. I was asked to wait outside in a small, quiet garden filled with strange blue flowers. Ilthari sat with me. Neither of us spoke much. The flowers moved in a wind I could not feel. When I was called back, the chamber was very still. Renville spoke. Sergeant Marcus Hale, the council has voted by a majority of 163 to 37. Humanity will remain a full member of the Galactic Coalition. Furthermore, a new classification has been created for your species, which no other species has ever held. From this day forward, humans will be known as Apex Auxiliary. You will be called upon only in matters of galactic emergency. You will have full autonomy in your operations. You will be trusted and you will be feared. I bowed my head slightly. Thank you, Counselor. He was quiet for a moment, then he said something that I would remember for the rest of my life. Sergeant Hale, I have served on this council for 600 years. I have seen many species come through these doors. I have never seen one like yours. May the stars have mercy on whatever comes out of the dark to face you next. I walked out of the chamber with Ilthari at my side. The sun was setting over Senthil Prime. The great golden towers were glowing in the orange light. Above us somewhere, my unit was waiting on a ship. Helen Owen Moore West, all of them resting, not yet knowing what had happened. I would go home to them. I would tell them that we had not been sent away. I would tell them that we were still part of this strange, huge family of stars and species. And then one day I knew the call would come again, and we would answer. 10 years passed. My hair turned gray at the edges. Wound from the ice of Drethvar left me with a limp that got worse in the cold. I was a general now, though I still Thought of myself as Marcus Hale, the sergeant who once ran across a burning colony with Helen Brooks at his back. I had an office on a space station above Earth with a window that looked down at the blue and white world where my species had grown up. I spent most days behind a desk, reading reports, training new soldiers, writing letters to the families of those we had lost. The galaxy had changed since the Council's decision. The title Apex Auxiliary had become more than just a classification. It had become a promise, a threat, a rumor whispered in the dark corners of space. In those 10 years, humans had been called only 4 times. Each time we had won, each time we had come home with fewer than we left with. But we had come home. Ilthari visited me often. She had become something like a sister to me in those years. Her hair had gone from pale blue to silver, a sign of age among her people. She wrote books about humans that were read on every world in the coalition. The young aliens of many species came to our schools to learn what it meant to stand firm in the face of hopelessness. She told them our stories. She made us sound better than we were. I did not have the heart to correct her. Helen Brooks was a colonel now with her own unit. She had married a quiet man who ran a small farm in Kentucky. They had 2 children. She sent me pictures every year on my birthday. Owen Grant had left the military after his 20th year of service and opened a school for young engineers. Leela Moore had become a training instructor for new snipers. Corporal West, bless him, had passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 73. I had written his family a long letter. He had been the best soldier I ever served with. Those 10 years were quiet. Then one morning I was having breakfast in my office when the emergency line began to ring. I knew the moment I heard that sound that the quiet was over. The voice on the other end was Ron Val's aide. The old counselor was still alive somehow at 700 years of age. Thessans live longer than most. General Hale, the aide, said, "The counselor is requesting your immediate presence at an emergency coalition session. A new threat has been detected. We need you." "What kind of threat?" "The kind we have never seen before." "Sir, please come quickly." I was on a fast transport. Within the hour, I did not even finish my breakfast. The council chamber was more crowded than I had ever seen it. Every seat was full. The air in the room felt tight. Like the moment before a storm, I noticed that many delegates were not looking at each other. They were looking at the floor. They were looking at their hands. I had seen that look before. It was the look of people who had been told something terrible and were trying not to cry in public. Ron Val rose when I entered. He looked tired. For the first time in all the years I had known him, he looked afraid. "General Hale, thank you for coming so quickly. Please join us." I took my seat at the front in the area reserved for military leaders. I nodded to Ilthari, who was in her usual spot. A young Thessan came forward and projected a large image above the chamber. It was a map of the galaxy. One region of space, near the edge of the outer rim, was glowing red. 3 days ago, the young Thessan said, sensors detected a large object moving into our galaxy from the space between galaxies. The object was not a ship in any way we understand. It is the size of a small moon. It is made of a material we cannot identify. It is traveling faster than our physics says should be possible, and it is heading directly for the core Worlds of the coalition. The map zoomed in. I could see the object now. It was dark, almost black. And it was shaped like nothing I had ever seen. It had no engines. It had no wings. It simply moved like a thought through the empty space between stars. We have attempted communication, the Thesson continued. There has been no response. We have attempted scans. Object reflects back nothing. It absorbs light. It absorbs energy. Our best weapons have no effect on it. 3. Vorthan probes were destroyed the moment they came within range. I leaned forward in my seat. How long? Until it reaches the core. 4 weeks, General. 4 weeks to the center of the galaxy. To the capital worlds, to the homes of every species in the coalition. Ron Val stood again. Every military option we have tried in the last 3 days has failed. The object does not respond to our presence. It does not change course. It does not attack us, but it does not respond to anything either. We have studied it and we believe it is some kind of probe, but a probe for what we do not know. What we do know is that if it reaches the core of the galaxy, something very bad will happen. Our scientists estimate a 98% chance that this will be an event from which our coalition cannot recover. He turned to look at me. General Hale, we have tried every option. All have failed. We are now activating the Apex Auxiliary Protocol. We are asking the humans to take this problem and solve it by whatever means you can devise. The chamber went silent. I stood up slowly. Counselor, I said, may I ask a question? Of course. If our best scientists cannot understand what this thing is and our best weapons cannot harm it, what exactly do you expect my people to do? He smiled a small, sad smile. General, I have known your people for a long time now. I stopped expecting things from you a long time ago. I simply watch to see what you will do. You always surprise me. I hope you surprise me again. I nodded. I sat back down. My mind was already working. 3 days later, I was on a ship, heading for the object. I had 300 human soldiers with me. Helen Brooks was my second in command. She had left her farm, kissed her children, told her husband she would come home, and joined me without hesitation. Owen Grant had come out of retirement to lead our engineering division. We had brought scientists, not just soldiers. We had brought experts on everything, from ancient languages to strain materials. We had brought everything we could think of because we did not know what to face. Elthari was with me as she always was. Now her silver hair caught the light as she sat beside me in the command center. She was old, but her eyes were still sharp. She was still writing things down. What are you thinking, Marcus? She asked me. I am thinking, I said slowly, that maybe we have been asking the wrong questions. Everyone keeps asking what this thing is. Nobody has asked what it wants. She tilted her head. And what do you think it wants? I do not know, but I know that things travel through space for reasons, even strange things, even things we do not understand. If it were meant to destroy us, it would have started destroying us. Already it has not, so it is here for some other reason, something it is looking for, something it is trying to find. On the 9th day of our journey, we came within visual range of the object. Up close, it was more than a little frightening. It was the size of a small moon, just as the reports had said, but Its shape was strange in a way that made my eyes hurt. It seemed to shift slightly every time I looked away and looked back, as if it were not entirely there. Its surface was black, but not the black of space. It was a deeper black, a black that looked like nothing at all. I made a decision that I had been thinking about for the entire journey. "I am going aboard," I said. Helen turned to me sharply. "Marcus, you cannot be serious." "I am serious. Nobody has tried to simply go aboard. Every approach so far has been from a distance. Scans, probes, weapons. Nobody has walked up to the door and knocked. You do not even know if it has a door." "Then I will find one." Owen came into the command center, carrying a small bag of equipment. He had clearly overheard the conversation. "If the general is going," he said, "then I am going with him." "No," I said. "Owen, you are not. Someone has to stay here and keep my people safe. That is you. If I do not come back, Helen is in command. Nobody tries to rescue me. Is that understood?" "Yes, sir," Owen said, though I could see he hated it. "I will go," Ilthari said quietly. We all turned to look at her. "Ilthari, no, you are too old." She smiled at me. It was the smile of someone who had already made up her mind. "Marcus, I am an Avani. I can read minds. If there is anything living on or in this object, I may be able to hear its thoughts. You will need me, you know." "You will." I looked at her for a long time. I knew she was right, and I knew I could not talk her out of it. "Then get a suit on, my friend. We are going for a walk." Ilthari and I launched in a small shuttle from our flagship. The object grew larger and larger as we approached. My pilot brought us close to the surface. We found what looked like a flat area and we sat down. The shuttle touched the surface gently. We did not sink, we did not bounce, we simply stopped. I put on my pressure suit. Ilthari put on hers. We stepped out into the airless quiet. The surface was smooth. It felt neither warm nor cold through my gloves. I took a step and then another. Ilthari walked beside me. I could hear her breathing over the radio. Then she stopped. "Marcus," she whispered, "I can hear something." "What is it?" She was silent for a long time. Her eyes went distant. Then she looked at me with wonder in her face. "It is a song, Marcus, a very old song. Someone is singing inside this thing. I do not understand the words, but I can feel the meaning. I can feel it. Meaning is loneliness. This thing is lonely." I stared at her. "Ilthari," I said slowly, "are you telling me that this moon-sized object that is traveling across galaxies and terrifying the entire coalition is actually just lonely?" She nodded, tears in her eyes. "Yes, that is exactly what I am telling you." I sat down on the smooth black surface of the object. I had been expecting a fight. I had been expecting enemies. I had brought 300 soldiers and every weapon the human race could provide, and now Ilthari was telling me that the thing was not a weapon at all. It was a traveler. It was something old and alone, looking for something it had lost a very long time ago. I began to laugh. I could not help it. "Ilthari," I said, "tell it hello for me. Tell it that humans are here. Tell it that we know something about being lost and far from home. Tell it we are listening." She closed her eyes. She reached out with her mind. For a long time nothing happened. Then, slowly the surface under my feet began to change. A soft light began to glow. Beneath the black, I stood up, Ilthari's eyes opened. It heard us, Marcus. It is answering. A hole opened in the surface of the object, not a violent hole, a gentle one. Like a flower opening, inside I could see soft golden light. It wants us to come in, Ilthari said. I took her hand. We stepped inside. What I saw in that place I will not write down. Some things are not for reports and books. They are only for the ones who saw them. I will say only this. Inside that object I met the last member of a species that had died out many millions of years ago. It had been traveling the galaxies ever since, looking for anyone who might still remember. It was old beyond measure. It was tired. It had been alone for so long that it had forgotten how to speak. But Ilthari could hear it and I could listen. We stayed for 3 days. In those 3 days we learned things that our scientists would spend the next 100 years trying to understand. The being gave us gifts of knowledge that would change medicine and physics and the way we understood the universe. In return, we gave it what it had been looking for, someone to sit with, someone to listen. We told it about our galaxy. We told it about the coalition. We told it that it was not alone anymore. On the 4th day, it asked us to leave. It was not angry. It was not sad. It had simply decided, after so many long ages of wandering, to stop, to rest. It had chosen a star system far from any inhabited world where it could float in the light of a sun and be at peace. It thanked us before we left. Ilthari translated the words for me. It said, I will never forget that. In the end, it was the small ones who heard me. We returned to the coalition as heroes. The council gave long speeches. Medals were given. Parades were held on 100 worlds. Ilthari and I sat through most of them, tired and quiet, smiling when we needed to. The real moment for me came after it was all over. Helen and I were sitting on a hill back on Earth watching the sunset. The same sun that had risen over our hard history 100,000 times. She was holding a cup of coffee. I was holding mine. Marcus, she said, I have been thinking about what? About what we are, about what they say. We are the apex auxiliary, the ones who do not stop. I used to feel proud when I heard that, like it meant something great about us. And now, she looked out at the sun. Now I think it means something simpler. I think it means we are just willing to show up. That is all. We show up when nobody else will. We listen when nobody else can. We walk into the dark when everyone else is too scared to move. That is not a great power. That is just a choice. Anybody could do it. Anybody at all. But for some reason it keeps falling to us. I thought about that for a long time. I thought about the Krill Bar and the Gateway and the moon of Drethvar. I thought about Oliver Grant and Corporal West and all the ones we had buried. I thought about the great lonely being in the dark and the song it had been singing for 1,000,000 years and the way its voice had sounded through Ilthari when she heard it. And I thought Helen was right. The galaxy fears us. They have good reasons. We are strange and we are stubborn and we do things that frighten the peaceful species who have forgotten what it was like to claw their way up from nothing. But the real secret, the one we never tell them, is this. We are not special. We are not stronger or smarter or braver than anyone else. We are just the ones who keep showing up. When the enemy comes, we show up. When the lost and lonely call out, we Show up. When something terrible walks out of the dark, we show up. And one day, a long time from now, when I am gone and Helen is gone and Ulthari is gone and even the great Rehenval is finally gone, there will still be humans. In this galaxy, they will still be showing up, they will still be walking into the fires that nobody else will enter. That is why the galaxy fears us, and that is why in the end the galaxy also loves us. The sun set behind the hills. Helen finished her coffee. She stood up and brushed the grass from her uniform. Come on, General, she said. It is getting late. I stood up too. My leg hurt the way it always hurt now. We walked down the hill together in the last of the golden light. And somewhere above us in the dark, between stars, the galaxy kept turning, full of frightened things and brave things and small lonely travelers, looking for someone who would listen, waiting for someone to show up, waiting for us.